All right, welcome to the AI Growth Hacking Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Best, here with my baby brother, Addison. And this is going to be a great one, Ad. We're talking about growing online with AI in this new age in 2025. We're going to share personal stories about wins and losses that we had last year in 2024, what we learned from that, how we're going to adjust given everything that's going on and how we are planning to grow and why. Again, we did pretty well last year overall, but there were some disappointments that I think it's good to share, just because not everything works as well as you hoped. And if you're honest about that kind of stuff, you learn what didn't go well. Then you can say, okay, why didn't it? And what can we do going forward rather than just having an ego, doubling, tripling down on it, doing the same stuff. We'd rather take what did work and do more of that. It's kind of what I'm thinking to start it off.
Yeah, so we're talking about what we did well in 2024 and what we didn't do as well, and what we think that means going forward. And we did a lot of stuff. I think that was the best thing we did in 2024. We actually tried many new platforms that we've never tried. We've been in online marketing for years, but we were just like, you know what? Let's
Decades,
try tons of
really.
yeah, so we tried tons of different things, and some of them worked really well. Not necessarily in a monetary sense, but we got a lot of traffic and data, and I think we're really going to be ready to make a lot of money this year. That's my belief. So we'll see how that goes.
And we want to share with you how to use some of these same tips so you can do the same thing. So, well, like when Ad said make a lot of money, I mean, we were still making from this new thing, in addition to our other businesses, like we're still making in the thousands per month, but we weren't making like tens of thousands and having these incredible conversion rates. And that's where we're going to go. So let's jump into like some specifics. So we can start with talking about Medium. A lot of people may know that I've been writing a lot, did last year on Medium. I started pretty much at 0 followers at the beginning of the year, wrote a lot about AI, got a lot of emails, thousands of them, like email signups to our emails. And, I have like 7,200 Medium followers, started at 0. Some of my articles that had over 100,000 views. But the problem, there's a few, is on the negative is I didn't really have a big audience for that. Like people weren't really, they may have liked the articles and that's why they got shared a lot or liked a lot, but um, people weren't really seeking me out that much because I wasn't personal enough. It wasn't coming from me. They were just sort of more generic articles, not really AI written stuff, but it wasn't like they had to go see my take on it. So I didn't build the audience. I just got the views.
I think that's partially true. I also think it's kind of the nature of Medium itself, because if you like or subscribe even to you as an author of Medium, what they do is they'll email a list of popular articles for that day. They won't just send someone your specific article, if even if you subscribe to you and follow you. So I think that's kind of the negative about Medium. You might get a lot of views, but are you going to get them again in 6 weeks from now? Not necessarily. They kind of die off pretty quickly.
Right, but as I pointed out, we got thousands of email signups directly to an email list. Excuse me. And even with that, we found that even though email marketing, and we're going to put a link to our favorite provider to get a discount in the show notes, but even doing that was less fruitful than we've experienced in the past and could have been, because even if they signed up through an article that I wrote, it wasn't a deep enough connection where they were dying to read every single email or email us back a lot. I mean, we got some of it because there's just so many views and emails, but it wasn't as good as a show that we had previously. I mean, we lived in China, and Ad's going to touch on this in a sec, but we lived in China for like 15 years. We had a really popular podcast back then teaching high level English, but it was like a show like this, and people actually wanted to follow us every single week. And we get emails. It didn't matter what we talked about. We could talk about our trip to Thailand. We could talk about like, I don't know, visiting my grandparents and what we thought of their dog. It really didn't matter. And the audience liked it because we had a fan base. But now I'm finding like if I wrote that kind of stuff in an email, we'd get more unsubscribes than sales, to any of that, because nobody cares at all about like what I'm saying personally. I'm saying that like I don't care as an ego way, but that brought down, I think, revenue in the medium term.
Well, that sounds like a killer email list we got there. I mean, and that's a little bit of an exaggeration. Again, it's not like we didn't get any sales. It's just we didn't get as much as we had hoped as a conversion rate, essentially.
Like,
And
we're
that's
having a lot of
probably
people
all.
sign up, but not like we're not making like hundreds of thousands a month, which we were kind of hoping just from emailing our list. We get a few course sales for a few $100 each, like each time we'd sent it, but it's not what we have experienced in the past. And the main thing is because we were not focusing on a show. There's just too much content, too much generic stuff, and it's going to be there for a long time. And we were not focused on an audience. That's the belief.
Well, we also just did many different things. We did a little bit of YouTube, we did a little bit of Medium, we did a little Substack, we even had courses on Udemy and stuff like that, which also certainly didn't necessarily translate into growing one cohesive, reason to sign up and follow us as, who we are, as opposed to just random topics that, in all fairness, were all over the board as well. It wasn't certainly wasn't niching down. We didn't want to niche down either because we were trying different things. But you're as again, this is the point. So now we're going to focus on a different style of a thing based on what we learned again in 2024 and what we think is going to work going forward. I think that's the whole point, right?
That yeah, no, that is definitely the point. And then to use the positive aspect of trying so many things, we did Etsy, done a little Pinterest. The point of dabbling is hopefully people listening can think, okay, we can actually learn from these guys firsthand experiences from trying all these things, what they found, and then we're going to share what is kind of working because we're not just I think the problem with people who do one thing and focus on it, they may know a lot about that one thing, but if you're avoiding talking about everything else, there's no real 30,000-foot perspective. So what happens is, yeah, it's interesting on that one topic, but it might not even be that great of a topic. So we're hoping to know like 90% of what these people know, but across many different domains. And that's the big insight for now is to so like I'd rather have 10 views of this podcast and 10 comments just saying like we like the show. We got someone last episode said, make more shows like this. That was like the best thing that could have happened. Better than a sale, honestly, to me, because we don't really need the extra money all the time. Shows somebody's listening. I'd rather have 10 comments, 10 views on the show than like 1,000 views and no one's saying anything because, if you make a good title, a good thumbnail, people click on it. But if they're not really watching it, there's no point.
Well, I mean that might be a bit of a stretch, but there's way less of a point if you're not really integrating what you're doing with everything. And again, I think we're trying to reinvent everything because we're living in the age of AI. So we're like, what do we do now? I think everything needs to be changed and everything needs to be thought again. So it's easy to think about, I don't want to try this, or I do want to try this, or I tried this before. Well, it's different now. Everything you've ever done is probably going to be different and going to be different again. So what do you do with that information? How do you
So
move forward?
yeah, uncertainty, change, these things are going to be accelerating. They're at like all-time highs now and going to be increasing. I mean, so going back to Medium quickly, they're having this huge crazy thing right now where um and writers are really upset about this because they're making quite a bit of money, some of them, on their Medium partner program. Now Medium has taken away like 90% of their revenue, and they have given the visibility a lot less to a lot of the top writers. And I wrote an article about this, and they even got back to me about this thing. And their what do you call it, excuse, so to speak, is there's so much AI spam on there now that they don't know what to do with it. Still, I don't know what they're doing with all the extra money, but a lot of these platforms are getting so much garbage dumped onto them, they don't know how to handle it. So you really need to show these algorithms that there's a real audience behind this, or you're not going to get any eyeballs on it.
Yeah, it's a confusing time because they can change the algorithm even if you were doing well and take away your revenue stream or your readership or whatever you're doing. And we kind of actually did know that before because we've been burned in the past, and that's why we're kind of trying to diversify and having new growth strategies, not just banking on one platform. Like before we did SEO and we crushed it, But now SEO, I mean, who's going to be searching? It's going to be you're talking to an AI chatbot with maybe our link isn't even going to be on there. So what do you do knowing that that could be the case? You have to
Yeah, so you're
change. Yeah.
I mean, and look at the uncertainty with TikTok. I just wrote an article about that. I might make a separate video, but that might be banned. Now, my perspective on that is there's less than a 10% chance that it actually will be banned in the US because there's too much money involved. And, at some point they're going to figure out like there's 170 million users on TikTok in the US, 7 million businesses, 2 million creators making 300 million a month. That they're going to figure that out, in my opinion. But look at the uncertainty there. It was banned in India 5 years ago. It's still banned. It might just go dark. Like there is a chance. That's what they're saying. So there's so much uncertainty of being like shadow banned, having your platform taken away, whatever, that you really do need to diversify.
Well, I think now we're just not going to worry as much and we're just going to have fun with it and try different things. And we're still going to build email lists is always going to be our backbone. So at least we're going to have them to at least email them what we've been up to. And as long as we can grow that, you can move that to any platform and then start again. So the funny thing is too, it's confusing what kind of content to do because like, they say like don't make AI generated content, but they make all these tools to make AI generated content like Google does, and they'll say we'll ban you for using it. Yet they use all AI generated content. Facebook now, what does it do? It was making user profiles, like pretending they were real people posting stuff. AI is doing that. So it's kind of confusing and like so you guys are allowed to do that and whatever you want, but I might get banned or in trouble. It kind of makes you feel weird to even, attempt anything, I find.
The only thing I can imagine now, and I'm just thinking out loud, is the biggest problem with AI, or one of them, is how easy it is to create so much content. So imagine if everybody, instead of writing one article or making one video, creates 10,000, because you can easily do that with a couple of clicks. That is too much to dump on these platforms, that I think they might start limiting how much people are allowed to upload. That's what I think. It's going to be like, put your best stuff forward. You can only write like one or two articles a day. You can only make a couple of videos a day. How good can the quality be if you're uploading 10,000 anyway? They might start limiting that. I don't really see a way around it.
Well, I think what they do, even Google does now, if you look at like webmaster tools or whatever it's called now, it'll say this is omitted in search results. So you can see what's actually being listed. They're simply just not going to have everything in the database. They'll be like, sorry guys, like this is all you get. And even if you had a good article later that's great content, they just simply won't show it up. It just won't be there. So I think that's how they'll get around with it. They'll look at you're doing this many, you're a single author, you're doing it in your parents' basement. We know who you are, we know what you're up to. You only get, as you said, maybe one article a day or whatever, and that's all you get. So
It'll be more than
another
one, but yeah, it could be they're going to index one or whatever the case is. But to the big question of like, how are we going to make a show that people want to watch, which isn't easy. But I think the idea is, if you just think that at a high level, like, this is what we're trying to do, rather than pick a good topic or a thumbnail or like something clickbaity. I think just having that in the back of your mind, like this could be something to listen to while you're driving in the car, while you're, I don't know, walking your dog or whatever. Like if we can create that type of a thing that people want to listen to, even if they don't care about every single word that's being said, just generally they like the topic, they like the discussion, that is the right attitude, I think, for this, rather than
right.
like what are people searching for and like how to, get that.
No, we're just going to try a bunch of stuff and share what we're doing and kind of doing the opposite because of what other people were going to be doing. We think that now people are going to be trying to make AI generated content, especially even podcasts now with Notebook LM. Now you can even make there. I'm seeing even courses now how to make like an AI podcast with AIs. So I feel like if people are starting to do that, I think it's better to do the complete opposite of that strategy, to be honest, which sounds maybe counterintuitive, but because it's gonna be flooded with garbage that I think people just won't listen to those. That's what I feel.
Yeah, the easier it is to make more and better content with AI, is the more reason to make less of it. I mean, and you can use AI. Like, we have an AI software, Cartario, and we'll put the link in there again, that makes AI generated images and you can build custom models. And we're making a Shopify app soon. But that isn't something to be spammy. That's just to make good looking stuff. So there is a use for AI if you're going to make something better. There's just not a use for it if you're going to be making a lot of it or too much of it.
Well, I think it depends on the types of content too. For example, if we posted this show with a thumbnail and AI generated show notes with the title and it just automatically posted with the link to our Substack and or our YouTube channel and whatever, and it posted the link so we didn't have to actually do it, that's not really spam because that's what you'd want anyway if you're a user and you just see it if you were liked and subscribed to our Facebook page or other channels. It's actually saving time and giving you what you wanted because it's not really content, it's just posting something that you want. It's a link, you're just adding the feed to it essentially and
It's
getting
doing
people
the
to find
grunt
it.
work, it's not making the personality.
Right. So I think that's if you start using it only as an aid or a research assistant to make more better stuff, I think that's going to be the key distinction, not making 10,000 articles that are the same as everyone else's 10,000 articles.
Yeah, and then look at and then penalties will be harsher too by these big companies. So don't get too confident doing that. If they don't like something, they don't care about anybody. They'll ban you for life, like without any notice,
No,
even
or
down to the
shadow ban,
IP.
exactly. Or shadow ban you, or like you're not going to be making any money or getting any views is the point. And it might actually, the problem, the annoying thing is too, it might work for a while. You might get overconfident in some strategy because you listen to some guru, and then all of a sudden you have nothing. And then you might have bought a house or something, and the wheels might come off. So I think these fly by night strategies are going to be even worse and worse going forward for the same reasons.
And we were not doing any fly by night strategies, but it's going to be so bad that we're going to like triple down going against it, and we weren't even doing them in the first place. So it really has to be a lot more personable. And then like we've seen this rise in cold email. There's so much of this AI cold email now, and we've heard success stories. We know people doing it and having success with it, but even that is getting trickier by the day because people are just flooded with requests to do something or sign up here, and unless you have something unique, and those are getting banned as well. So it's got to be real people. And then if you do have a real show ad, we're expecting we can contact people more easily, get guests on the show. So real authentic reality, that is the name of the game.
Well, yeah, for sure. If you actually do something, we have a software company too. We make AI generated images and we have a software we can say, hey, we want to integrate with your company. Can we make some kind of partnership? If you actually have someone, it's much easier to contact someone. And if they can go and check you after, which they do, then they're more likely to
Mm.
actually respond to you for any type of, cold email or anything you're doing. So if you're not building your audience, building some sort of a brand, or even just building your career in some way, whatever you're doing, you better be building something that people will respect what you're doing. You could just have a job and post on LinkedIn. If you had a good job and had interesting thoughts, people would follow you and not care about everything else. It's not like you need to be have your own business necessarily either.
No, and then I think another thing is there to add to that, if you do have something though, because a lot of people have the same kind of thing, having a show or some popular um like profile online on top of that actually will make people more likely to reach you back as well. Because if you say I've got this AI software that does blank, well, there's so many even of those that how could you cut through the noise on that? And that's what we're hoping a show like this does. And when we did have success last year, Ed, like we worked with some clients that just sort of reached out because we were reading an article, watching a video, whatever, just not as much as we'd hoped. They like the person. They're like, I think this is interesting. I like what you guys are doing. And then wanted a meeting, even though we didn't set that up per se. They kind of outreached from watching or reading what we were doing. So that's why we want to focus more on that as well.
And now I think just behavior is shifting a little bit too. We're getting a lot more direct links from the stuff we're doing now too. So that means people are actually searching our names or like our brand, Cartario or whatever, and like where are they coming from? You don't know exactly, but that means we're putting out, every time we talk about it, we're doing a podcast, we're doing, writing articles. it's coming from somewhere, obviously, a referral from a friend, whatever. As long as those metrics are coming in too, that's super positive. You're getting clicks, even if they're not responding necessarily, but you need some positive metrics coming in. And I think the
And you don't
stuff
have
we're
to
starting to
focus
do.
on the metrics. Like when we find we're focusing on generally creating something that people like, then the metrics are just there. Whereas if we're focusing on the metrics, you don't get anyone liking it, and then the metrics end up going down. Because the AI in the background that's also running these algorithms is getting better at knowing what to show people.
Yeah,
So you better have some kind of repeat audience.
for sure. And as you mentioned, you alluded a little bit too. We have that. We started an Etsy store, or I did mainly, and we started getting a little bit of sales selling directly, mainly dog pictures of if you can upload pictures of your dog and make things. I've been getting great comments from what I've been doing, but I find it always interesting to try something new. And I've been noticing something that I've never done before is like somehow I'm getting Pinterest views now from these dog photos, and people are loving them. So, like, I think there's something there, and that's what I'm making a distinction. Like, I'm not this isn't really a project that I think is gonna be, like, what we do as a business, but I think we can maybe learn how to use Pinterest or some other algorithms and just learn from it. And now I'm getting it's mostly women that I'm interacting with and that are loving what I'm doing, so it's like a new market and a strategy. So I think it's fun to try something completely different that you may have never even anticipated even thinking about before.
So then the take home then is you're still going to do a lot of experimenting going forward, but what's the difference of now versus last year, for example?
Well, I think, last year we didn't have our software, for example. We're doing more integrations and partnerships, so it's a little bit of a different stage. We were actually more building anything. We didn't have an audience, we didn't have a software, we didn't have a bunch of stuff. So now we can leverage off our audience, our software, our different distribution channels, and you have a different strategy because of that. But if we didn't do what we did last year, I think that would be tough because we wouldn't know where to begin, and you have to start somewhere, and it could be anywhere, and that's what we learned. So I don't think we did a bad job last year. It just didn't go exactly how we hoped or planned, but in a way it went better in some ways, I think, too. So it's hard to answer that. I think if we do well this year financially, we might say that was a great year, 2024 actually.
Yeah, it was like a fine year. Wasn't one of the worst, but I think the idea though is now we want to not like we've kind of tapped out at just getting views or clicks for something. Now we want the repeat audience saying, "I like what these AI growth guys are talking about. I'm excited to tune into the next episode," rather than everything is just that's how many views you got at that and then nobody cares anymore. So I think it's going in this direction. Like we know this podcast right now because we don't have a ton of viewers is not going to get that many. So what's the point of wasting our time on it? It is to build someone who wants to watch the next one and go for that snowball.
Yeah, exactly. And be actually part of our brand, maybe lead to bigger things because we're doing enough outside of this that it doesn't really matter if we get people, real fans that like us. Might even be six people that really like us, and that could lead to something bigger. I mean, that's probably
Hopefully
an
leads to 7 or
exaggeration.
8
Yeah, hopefully
and
that's an
then more.
exaggeration, but you know what I'm saying, and, like, it's a different model. We're gonna go back to our roots more and just have a show and have fun with it and just talk about what we're actually doing, not worrying about that many things. And, the topics will be a little different, be a little bit all over the board because the funny thing is that's how we were most successful in the past anyway, and it's actually easier to make 'cause now we're just having a chat about what we're doing.
We
So
don't have to edit this.
we spend most of the time doing things. The problem is if we did nothing, we'd have a lot of dead air, a lot of like, so we want to talk about AI and have a growth podcast show. What are we going to talk about? There's nothing to say because we're not doing anything. So the more
So
you do, you'll have something to talk about.
what about then the audience members listening who are going to say, "Okay, that's great for you. You don't really need like the money every single week or month so you can afford to have some show growing, but we need to make the revenue quickly." What would you say to those people?
Well, you don't even necessarily need to do a show. As I said, we've tried other channels. You can write, Medium and still Substack. There's different channels that you can do. You don't have to do the exact thing. It's just you have to be consistent and build something. I don't think you have to do a show at all. Like you
No, it
could.
doesn't have to be a show, but I think the idea is it has to be if you're doing something, it should be people you want to have people, the same people going week after week to whatever you're doing, not just get random views every time you do something.
Well, it's hard if well, we have a supplement business as well, and if we didn't get any repeat buyers, we would be out of business very quickly because it costs too much for to get a new user. To acquire a new customer costs a lot of money. So if you spend even if the conversion rates are crazy, really high, it's like if you're only selling a 20 or $30 product, and you're spending a dollar per click and shipping and blah blah blah, you're not going to make any money and you're not going to get any sales the next month without dumping tens of thousands of dollars in ads, and then you're going to be losing money. So there's no profit there if you have that strategy. If you're not building something for repeat and an audience or a strategy of going forward, how am I going to get the next use or maintain my user? It's really tough to do business, I think.
And I think the algorithms are going to say, hey, last podcast or last article you wrote or last whatever, you had this many people, um, watch it or read it. We just went and showed that's your next one to that same group, and less people are watching or reading it. So now we've learned that what you make isn't that good, so we're not going to show it next time. So I think the idea is the algorithms are learning what do people like regularly and promoting that. That's the goal of it. So you really need to have people, the same people, keep liking it or it's not going to be shown.
Right, and that's what we noticed about our last show that we did that was a slightly different format, more like this, it was a show. It's like the people that were watching it were previous subscribers. We don't have a huge YouTube channel, but it's still like 1,500 subscribers or six, I don't know, something like that in that ballpark.
It's like
And those
1450.
Right, or whatever it is, and those people really watch the show, which is a good sign, which means they're coming back and doing it again, and if they didn't do that, the algorithm will say, "Well, that's not really much of a show, guys. This is supposed to be a podcast." So it's not it's we will have to end it at some point. If we end up doing 100 of these and then it goes, this we see the graph going down, down, down and not up, we will have to change our approach as well. And that's part of it. We don't know 100% what we're doing yet either for that reason. So we have to keep analyzing and like after, next episode, next few, we'll have an idea though if it's picking up. And it doesn't have to be crazy. It just has to be an obvious growth trend, you know.
And we'll share that on the next podcast, a couple of numbers that you can look at and what we're dealing with. So hopefully you got maybe we can even end here ad. Hopefully you like and comment. I don't want to do the typical like comment so good for the algorithm, even though it is. But if you like it, you want more shows. I mean, if you write it, at least it makes our day. You can feel like a good person. But we'd love to know what you think.
Yeah, exactly. Feel free to reach out on our AI Growth Guys website as well. You can put it in the comments, private message us. We'll be tickled pink as they say. Feel free.
Good one.
We're open to anything at this point. But the key is hopefully you enjoyed it and give feedback. Don't be shy. And even if it's not something we'll necessarily do right away, but we will be thinking about it. Because to be honest, it's not a huge show yet. So your feedback we might actually do, 10 or 20-minute episode about it. So who knows?
Yeah, so there's some incentive there, Ad. But all right. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this. Again, like, comment, check out the show notes though for the link, see what we're up to. And we're going to be sharing more personal experiences and then using that to give tips on what to do in the age of AI. So authenticity, Ad, that's the name of the game from this episode. That's the keyword I would take out of it. Be
All right.
authentic, then you'll get views, no
All
matter how
right.
you're doing it.
Okay, well, we'll see if that's true. I think we were fairly authentic in this episode, and the data hopefully will prove our point in the next few days when we look back and think we aced it, hopefully. Let's see if
Right
this was an
on.
ace, and we will see you next time at the AI Growth Hacking Podcast, aigrowthguys.com.